The changing world of visual arts. Next, when you look at a work of art, painting, sculpture, etc., it may not be obvious that, like most other things, art too is influenced by the world around it. You may not realize that what you see also shapes your own ideas. In this chapter, we will be looking at the change in the world of visual art during the colonial period and how these changes are linked to the wider history of colonialism and nationalism. Next, colonial rule introduced several new art forms, style, materials, and techniques which were creatively adapted by Indian artists for local patrons and markets in both elite, the popular, and circulars. Next, you will find that many of the visual forms that you take for granted today, say a grand public building with domes, columns, and arches, a science, a landscape of realistic human image in a portrait, or in popular icon of gods and goddesses, a mechanically printed and mass produced picture had their origin in the period we will discuss in this chapter. Next, to understand this history, we will focus primarily on the change in the spare painting and printmaking. Next, new forms of imperial art. How did the knowledge of ancient text help the reforms promote new laws? Next, what were the different reasons people had for not sending girls to school? Next, why were Christian missionaries attacked by many people in the country? Would some people have supported them too? If so, were reasons? Next, in the British period, what new opportunities opened up for people who came from castes what were regarded as law? Next, how did Jotrai, Jyotirao, and Reform justify their criticism of caste inequality in society? Next, why did Phule dedicated his book Gulmgiri to the American movement to free slaves? Next, what did Ambedkar want to achieve through the temple entry movement? Next, why were Jyotirao Phule and Ramaswamy Nikekar critical of the national movement? Did their criticism help the national struggle in any way? Next, from the 18th century, a streams of European artists came of India along with the British traders and rulers. The artists brought with them new style and new conventions of painting. They began producing pictures which became widely popular in Europe and helped shape Western precisions in India. Next, European artists brought with them the idea of realism. This was a belief that artists had to observe carefully and depreciate faithfully what they saw. What the artist produced was expected to look real and lifelike. European artists also brought with them the technique of oil painting, a technique with which Indian artists were not very familiar. Oil painting involved artists to produce images that looked real. Next, not all European artists in India were inspired by the same things. The subjects they painted were varied, but invariably they seemed to emphasize the superiority of Britain, its culture, its people, its power. Let us look at a few major trends within imperial art. Next, on One popular imperial tradition was that the picturesque landscape paintings, what was the picturesque this style in painting deficient Indian is quaint land to be explored by traveling British artists. Its landscape was rugged and wild, seemingly alternated by human hands. Thomas Daniel and the nephew William Daniel were the most famous of the artists who painted within this tradition. They came to India in 1785 and stayed for 7 years, journeying from Calcutta of northern and southern India next. They produced some of the most picturesque landscape of Britain's newly conquered territories in India. Their large oil paintings on canvas were regularly exhibited to select audiences in Britain, and their album of energy were eagerly bought by up a British public keen to know about Britain's empire. Picture 2 and 3 is a typical example of a picture shape landscape painted by the Daniels. Notice the runs of local buildings that were once grand. The buildings are reminder of past glory, remain of an ancient civilization that was now in ruins. It was as if this decaying civilization would change and modernize only through British governance. Next, the image of British rule bringing modern civilization of India is powerfully emphasized in the numerous picture of late 18th century Calcutta drawn by the Daniel. Next, in this drawing, you can see the making of a nephew and new Calcutta with wide avenues, majestic European style buildings, and new modes of the transport. Picture 3 and 4. There is life and activity on the roads. There is drama and excitement. Look carefully at picture 7 and 9. See how denials contrast the image of traditional India with that of the under British rule. Picture 2 and 3 seek to represent of the traditional life of India as pre-modern. Next, challengeless and motionless typified by Fakir cows and boats sailing on the river shows the modernizing influence of British rule by emphasizing a picture of dramatic change.